would tell people, get out there, take risks, try the thing. People don't hold on their deathbeds the like stuff where it's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. But it's the stuff they did not do that pulls the absolute hardest at their souls. If I could tell anybody anything, the stuff you did not do is the stuff that will pull at you. So get out there and do it.
I'm Jai.
I'm Kara.
I'm Sarah.
That's pretty funny. So this is Metamorphosis, a limited edition podcast where we are talking everything content creation, creativity, mindset, maybe today a little bit of mental health, other things like that. So really excited, and thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Yeah, I would love it if you could introduce yourself. So Sarah is somebody that is near and dear to my heart. I've been working with her for almost over a year now. Yeah, she's my therapist actually, and psychologist, and she's one of the most special, powerful people I've ever met. But I'd love it if you could just tell everybody who you are, a little bit about you, brag about yourself a little bit. You're pretty amazing actually. So.
That will be a tough order, and I will try.
Do you want me to take my shoes off? Because I just noticed it's
we're
a
barefoot.
trend.
Yeah, just take your shoes off.
I think you should take your shoes off, because we're just going to get real here today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel uncomfortable that you have your shoes on.
I know.
So if you could just remove them.
And,
anyway, back to you, Sarah.
Wow. That feels
see,
nice.
don't they feel better already?
Yeah.
Totally.
Gross. Okay.
Okay. Sarah Turley. I've been a psychologist since about 1990s. I went into this. And I spent most of my career in the VA, training other psychologists, doing mostly palliative care, end of life, amputees, death and dying, rehab, traumatic brain injuries, among other things, and really working with mostly veterans as a population.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Do you ever get exhausted?
I have never felt as alive as when I did palliative care.
Really?
Really?
There is something about making life finite and mortal that makes you live really, really well and appreciate quality of life. And so that was a dream job for a very long time. And in the middle of COVID, actually the beginning of COVID, there started being healthcare providers going down. COVID was essentially like Vietnam in some ways, and I know that's sort of a heavy comparison, but I started seeing health providers' suicide go down. And I wasn't willing to, at least on my watch, let this happen without trying something. So in the middle of a pandemic, I left the VA, went out on my own, and started taking care of mostly psychologists and physicians, and then that branched out to other people. I've done this long enough that most people sort of find me kind of through a back door. I don't advertise a ton. And there's people that will often come and say they want help and are not great fits. The people who are best are the ones who are often deeply willing to lean in and do the hard work. And so that's something that I have really loved doing. And that's actually something, I'm gonna go there. It's been an honor to work with you and watch you become who you're supposed to be. So.
Oh man.
I love that.
You can't stop crying because then I'll stop crying.
There might be crying and there might be barefoot. We'll just keep rolling.
Well, actually, I'd like to put some context here as well.
Yeah.
We've just been recording the course with you, and Kara was very adamant that you had to be in the program with us. So, Kara, I want to ask.
Yeah.
You went through a lot of self-development and stuff last year, and you went and did a lot of therapy, and it's helped you a lot. Why have you been so compelled to actually bring your therapist on board to actually create some stuff in our course and in our learnings?
Yeah, when you say it out loud, it sounds so unhinged. I love therapy so much that everyone gets therapy. You get therapy. No, I think the biggest discovery that I had, though, especially when I was at the lowest point, lots of things. First of all, I don't like to ask for help. And I know you're that way too. But I think I thought that I could just make myself heal, that I could just force the process, that I could just get through everything that I had gone through and be okay. And I got to this point where I recognized that I wasn't okay and I actually needed help. And that's a really vulnerable place to be when you're at what you feel like is rock bottom and you just feel like I don't know how to keep going. And for me, it was pretty dramatic. It was either I wasn't going to keep going or I was going to try to get some help. and that's when I met Sarah. And I realized throughout my healing journey, so just I guess for anybody that's listening, I stopped creating for a while. I took a big break. I did. I kind of hibernated for a little bit in some ways. In some ways I didn't. I was doing a lot. I was traveling a lot, but mentally I was really working on healing and going through PTSD therapy and trauma therapy, and it felt like running a marathon mentally all the time, but it was really powerful. And I realized just how much of our art and creativity is us and how we are doing, how we are showing up, how we're doing mentally, it affects how we can even show up to create. And I don't think I had ever made that connection previously. And so that's why I was so adamant that Sarah had to be in this course, because so many people are going through so many things.
Well, also the course, we really talk about like the 4 stages of the metamorphosis. So we got one stage that's like the rest, and it's like looking after your mental health, and it's like diving into things that a lot of us all struggle with, which is like imposter syndrome or the fear of failure and all these things. So it's pretty cool that you brought someone that has got some really like a really good toolbox to be able to give tools to the people that need it when they need it.
That's what I thought. I'm not qualified to teach those things. I've certainly felt them, but I wanted to bring in somebody who really knows how to walk through what you go through when you're feeling these things, and then give you the tools. And yeah, I would love to just hear a little bit more from you about that.
I think initially when Kara had sort of come to me, there are real sort of ethical guidelines, boundaries around therapy to keep clients safe. And I am an ethicist at my heart. I've actually helped sort of rewrite one of the exams that every psychologist has to take on ethics. And so I had this real like come to not only like my own sense of doing good, doing no harm, advancing this, and in this way where this is core and part of this process you're trying to help other people do, where there are some tools, and keep this where this is healthy, helpful, ethical. It definitely took a bit to kind of come and make sure I got the consultation, make sure, you know, everybody sort of signed off on this in some different ways, and that genuinely this was going to be a good thing for you is really was at the heart of this for me. And so the vulnerability, the realness, the authenticity, like the showing up, as you continue to become, I'm happy to, I think, help other people with this. We wanted to reach more people than I think you can do, like in an individual therapy dyad in some neat ways.
Yeah.
And so I'm on board. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? You say this a lot, the beauty of becoming, like you are becoming. And that is so much about what this course is. It's metamorphosis, it's evolving. What does that mean?
I think let me think through this for just a second, and I'll take a moment.
She's starting to sound like me.
I know, right?
Just no answers.
I say something and it sort of sounds really intense and sort of a lot. You're only as alive as your willingness to be annihilated. So I show up all in, whether it's scuba diving, it's mountain biking, it's in love, it's in life, it's in helping people become their real selves, like become who you're meant to be without all this stuff. Like trauma therapy really is about uncovering who you were meant to be before the world got its hands on you, and I feel really, really strongly about that. Or at the end of life, to help somebody die a good death and exit stage right, and then help the people heal on the other side. So coming into spaces, using my energy to help people become more the way a good outcome without forcing that, but helping people become who they're meant to be is something I'm really passionate about. Like, I always used to ask this question. There's this lottery billboard. I love lottery billboards because it just lets you dream for a minute. But it was like, what would you do if truly you won the lottery? And I can honestly say, most days, I would do this for free. I would use my energy on this planet, in this life, to help people become, whether I was paid or not. And so most days I go, this is a good day. I'm alive and I'm using my energy in ways that helps people become who they're meant to be. So
Do you
Yeah.
I like obviously you don't want to
Yeah.
share too much about like your clients and all that kind of stuff, but do you have some special cases that really make you really proud? Like when you think about how like where they were to where they've been able to become and how you've helped facilitate that transformation.
Would you check her out?
She's right next to me.
Oh. I'm like, who?
And we may, without so much talking about clients, which I'm not gonna probably go into at any level. There are so many days, and I don't care who gets the credit, and I don't care who, like, having people become who they're meant to be. You get one life, like palliative care, that's probably the one thing that it taught me. You get one go round. I don't know if I believe in anything after this, but I know I believe in using all your energy, bringing that to bear now is so incredibly fulfilling. Like, my job on this planet, my calling really is to help people become in different ways, depending on what that is, whether I get them for one single session, because that's all I get, or I get somebody over the course of a year just to help them move through life in ways where they're more themselves. That feels like the most fulfilling. So yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
Love that.
What do you feel most proud of looking back at everything you've done up to this point in your life? You've had a lot of different stories and experiences, I feel like.
Just the one moment.
Just the one moment.
I guess that's hard.
There are so many. Like,
Give me one, just
okay,
one.
okay.
Doesn't have to
let's
be the
see.
moment, just
no,
a
not
moment.
the moment, a moment. You know, there's things again that are humbling, where you go, like learning how to ask for help. Oh my God, that took basically 49 years on this planet to like learn how to ask for help. Holy crud. The universe kind of like kneeled on my neck, laid me down out, completely splattered, and it's like, are you gonna learn this? And it kind of just kept its like on my neck for a while. I think giving you sort of a clearer image where can you continue learning? Can you continue like taking the universe in, learning from it, tough stuff, and moving forward? My daughter, child B at this point, I'll just call her that.
Shout out to child
Right,
B.
child. Oh, Lily Kate. Anyways, I love asking my kids real questions, just what they think. And so we're sitting at dinner one time, probably one of my favorite spots up here in one of the canyons, and I just asked my kids, what's the point? Why are we here? And
Just a simple question.
Just a simple question.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
let's
just
just
like
talk about
over
existential
breakfast.
eggs. Completely.
Existential
And
Over
she's totally.
You're having a hard-boiled
Right?
egg, and it's just like, just tell us.
So she looks at me with this mix. I think she was about 15. She looks at me with this like, you don't get this? A little bit of contempt in the most beautiful way an adolescent can, and like, really? This is what we're doing? And she just looked at me and she's like, Mom, you are here to love, and you do that really well, and be loved, and you need to work on the second. And I was just like,
You're like, well, it took me a long time to work out life, but finally.
the second piece to go let people love me, and that my daughter can see this and tell me. So when I look at those things, am I willing to learn? Am I willing to do the very same things that I ask my clients to do? Yeah,
That's
and I'm learning.
really beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've spent a lot of time at people's deathbeds. Do you know what people tend to regret? Like what comes up? What comes up at the end of life? Like, I've never been there. I'm curious.
I've probably sat by and watched, at this point, 750 people take their last breaths on this planet.
Wow.
Are you okay?
I am so good
Okay.
with this. And when I think about what it is that I would tell people who are alive and living and are breathing, every one of us right now, it isn't the stuff that people did that bothers them, it's what they did not do. That pulls at people more than anything else. So I would tell people, get out there, take risks, try the thing. People don't hold on their deathbeds the like stuff where it's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. But it's the stuff they did not do that pulls the absolute hardest at their souls.
Wow.
And so those things, even if we can help somebody at the very end say like, I love you, or I'm sorry, or forgive me, we try. But I think if I could tell anybody anything, the stuff you did not do is the stuff that will pull at you. So get out there and do it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about my trauma?
Your trauma?
No, can you tell us a little bit about just trauma in general?
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people, maybe they're trying to avoid their own trauma, or they feel like they're hard done by and they wish something didn't happen to them, or the circumstances that they have and everything. But do you feel like a lot of trauma builds someone's character, or like it can, and it actually can be used in a positive way for their life?
I would, and I'm going to answer this sort of both ways.
Yeah.
Do you think teas would be helpful to explain those?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do both sides around here, and I think I'm going to end on your point. When I first started doing this in the 90s, I don't even know how old I look anymore, but we used to look at something like a big T for trauma as like somebody went to war. Or somebody, got gang raped in Mexico. Those are big T's. So it's stuff that everybody would look at and be like, that should not happen to a human being. That's a big one. So big T's. And we used to just think that is trauma. Everything else is just life or just stuff that happens to you. But what we now know a lot more is that T's come in different varieties. And the ones that are small T's or chronic T's layer in a way where they're actually almost as significant as a big T.
And I'm guessing they can stack up together, huh? Like lots
Like
of
geography.
micro ones can make something big.
Exactly. Where, let's say you have a kid who's getting bullied repeatedly in high school, and it's not that it's like, it's a big T, but it's a small T. It's stuff that, quote, shouldn't be happening to somebody. And they have a lot of those. Those stack up and layer in a way where they can almost even sometimes be bigger than this big T. And why they're bigger is because you can't point to something and go, that's why. People will walk around going, I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why I'm this upset. I don't know why I'm so bothered, when you have something else layer onto it. So we look at this stuff very differently now, T's, and kind of when it is really upsetting, like something, quote, small happens, but you feel it in your body, like you're deeply upset over and over and over again, that's where I go, get professional help. Like we're going to be giving people tools to just sort of help them navigate. But there's a lot of times where people suffer or struggle with stuff that I go see somebody and work through T's if they're there. Now that being said, the other side of T's, the more sort of learning that I have felt on this planet is related to tough things. I've learned more from divorce, starting over as a therapist, than I have from sort of the good times. So if you think about like going down a river, when it's calm, when it's easy, that you're not learning as much as when you're navigating around a rock and you might flip the boat, you might end up on the river swim team for that moment. So failures, upset, hard stuff, I think teaches us a lot if we'll let it, is my thought. But
do you feel like with the small T's and the big T's, people generally with the big T's are going to come to therapy and be more open and willing to work on something, but like with the small T's, it could be masked with like, I'm fine and I'm doing fine, and then like avoid doing something like looking after themselves.
Yep. And I think this is where I would invite, how many people go, I want to go to therapy? Anyone?
I mean,
like
now
initially?
I do.
Now you do.
But I didn't want to for a long time. Yeah.
Talk about that first, and then I'll hit this one. Like,
I think part of it is you just don't really want to admit to yourself that you're not okay, right? Like when I think about therapy, I think that sounds so dramatic. Like I'm being dramatic. I can get through this on my own. I'm gonna be fine. Look, I just had a good day. Things are fine. Like I think it's that. Yeah. And I know you just started therapy last year as well.
I did therapy
Tell me
last
about
year
that.
as well. Well, it was actually kind of interesting because I've never been against it. I never thought like, oh, I don't need that. But honestly, I just never really gave myself the time. And so I never gave myself the time to like go through my own trauma or things that I've been through. And so last year, finally, at like 37, I was like, this is the year, and I learned a lot, and it was a lot of growth. Yeah.
Deeply. Yeah. I would say most people, whether they have big T's, small T's, chronic T's, nobody wants to come to therapy. And usually you have to get to a point where you're either on your knees or it's sort of really hard. So I would say even with the big T's, people generally keep going, it's fine, and kind of just, they keep going, they take another step. Now, this is not you, this is me. I think even as somebody who really likes to run the Martyr Olympics, and I used to run hurdles in the Martyr Olympics, like the idea of sort of needing help, that is kind of I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks even for self to go, okay, I need in some real ways. So I think we avoid because we can keep going. It would be smarter, no one does this, to just go, hey, I could really use a dose of therapy, even self included. And I think that is sort of better if you can, but most people have to kind of be brought down in some ways before they come into therapy. And so if, as part of this, even to just normalize a bit of, I just ask myself one question, do I function better with or without it? And it's like, okay, I need a dose of it right now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel like you can come at like therapy from two places. One is like you're broken and you're scared and you're hurt, and the other side could be like, I'm thriving and I want to do better and I want to optimize. Okay, so I see the two. And often, like as a business coach myself, when people come to me, they come when they're broken and broke and the business is so far gone. And I'm always like, man, you should have come to me like a year ago when it was like doing good. When things go good, people think that they don't need help or they don't need to like, dive into anything.
Yeah.
And it's not until it gets bad, but often I feel like that could be too late. Do you think that sort of relates?
Not only that, but I would say people who've usually been through a course of therapy where it's gone well and you've gotten good traction and progress out of it, I think they're more likely to be like, I need help. Like just even sort of normalizing that easier, quicker. So it's about, to me in some ways, exposure, about even doing it, to just go, oh, I need help again.
Yeah.
And I really like that model. So I do see that they're more likely and willing to do it when they've had a course that's sort of gone well. Then it's like, I don't have to do this on my own, which I think is people that this probably appeals to go, I want some things to be different. I need some help, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
What about like if you want someone close to you to go to therapy, or like you're with a partner and you want to go together as partners, or maybe you've got like a friend or you've got a parent or something. Like, I mean, we all have like someone where we like, they want to offload onto you, but at the end of the day you're like, it would be really cool if we like went and got professional help, or without saying like you need some professional help, but you know what I mean. It's like how like in your inner circle, it's like how can you help the people around you?
I love that we're gonna help get people we love into therapy. So I would tell you what I would do. I would get really, really quiet. Like when they're either like sitting with coffee, they're sitting at the end of a meal, I don't know, somewhere, find them where they're quiet and just sort of still, and I would just get really up close to them.
You need therapy. You really need professional
You're
help.
getting warmer, but
wait till they're at peace.
Well, to their peace.
Bombard them.
Right? And then be like, do not do that. Do not scare them. No jumping out of closets. No. To just really, again, with vulnerability in your eyes, and just go, are you okay? Are you happy? Are you really happy in here? Are you content? I really want more for you. And lean in on it and let them talk and just go, I think it could be, really helpful for you to talk through somebody, especially if you have the ones that like to vent at you. Do you know what I mean? Where you're
like I've heard that story 10 times. I feel like we should uncover this a little bit.
And it feels a little stuck. What would it be like to actually move through that? Like, how different could it be if that wasn't the story you told yourself every time stuff got hard? Mom, dad, partner, whoever. And just sort of show up with some vulnerability is usually what I encourage people to do. You can't tell people to do it.
Can you help people that don't want to help themselves?
I will tell you, those are my least favorite, is when they don't want to be there. You don't get the traction out of them. So there's even times where somebody will show up and I'll be like, not yet.
Yeah, it's just not the right time.
No, and I think when you are on your knees, when it is down, when you go, this is not okay, I don't want more days like this, that's when people are sort of most motivated to kind of climb out on their own.
Yeah, so it's almost like, when sometimes the way I look at it is like when the pain gets harder than the uncomfort of going to get help.
Yes.
And like I think about this all the time. It's like if you showing up on social media or saying, I'll never do that, and I'm like, but the pain of me not reaching my goals is now outweighing the uncomfort of me showing up on social media, and it could be like the same with therapy, I feel.
Not only do I love that, but I would say the other way, so of going, are you happy, are you okay, generally, is to actually say, do you see me? therapy's been really valuable for me, and this is what it's done. I would love to have that for you. So to even kind of go through it, to go, hey, I can better stand up for myself, or I'm more assertive, or I have more intimacy, or I have more joy, whatever it is, to use yourself and let them see that and go, I really want that for you too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's pivoting a little bit, but you are the psychologist that teaches psychologists. I'm just curious what you have learned. Is there anything surprising even that you've learned about humans? Or something, or just even some fact about psychology that you're like, I thought I knew this, but no, it was this, or I don't know. That's kind of open-ended, but I think I'm just fascinated by it. I just feel like you know things. I'm like, tell us your secrets.
Okay. Things I know.
Sarah,
okay.
can you tell us a secret?
Yeah, tell us the secret.
Lots. I would tell you lots of secrets, depending on which sort of ones you want to know about that.
Juicy secrets.
Right. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to give you two. The thing that I tell psychologists, because they are high, big brain overthinkers in many ways, is just because you can do something does not mean you should do something, and really breaking that down.
Wow.
And that may be true of other people too, but really differentiating. Just because you have a skill or ability or something that you doesn't mean that you necessarily want to do that or do more of it. So even like thinking about photographers, that you go, yeah, I can do headshots, or I can do boudoir, or I can do whatever piece of this. Is that what you want? Is that good for you? Should you do that? Because the more of what we do more of that very thing. So that's one with training those humans. It kind of helps them pause a bit. I think the thing, so this is not, you will not find this in a book.
Unless you write this book.
I
Write the book. I've been telling you to write a book.
I toy with this all the time. Okay. Humans are the most absurd species on the planet.
We're pretty odd looking too, hey?
We are so odd looking and like
Kind of like a
deliciously
hairless
and all
cat
these
with like real long bits at the top here. Some weird toes going on.
right? That we need brushing and all sorts of like I would say, right? Okay. As a species, we have a CPU that in an average bear is 4 to 5 times bigger than what it should be. That sucker is running 2 miles ahead, talking, thinking all the time, and it doesn't shut up. Like your brain is literally talking and thinking. If you're awake, it's problem solving all the time. And what people really don't get, 80% of the stuff it tells you is trash. It's not good for you. It's negative.
Especially
it's
my
like
brain.
Stay out of, especially my brain.
I don't want to go in there.
That thing is miles ahead. And then you put it on top of a mammal, like a dog or a cat. And then this thing is like whining on the side of the trail, just laying there whimpering, and the brain's like 2 miles ahead, and you got to get these two things back together.
So like your body and mind has got to be in sync.
Yeah, and it's really hard. And it's even more so with all of not just media, but we're sort of bombarded with a lot of stuff where we can't get present, connected, and plug in. So putting these two back together, I think that's a bit of you got to learn your owner's manual, what you need, and how to live so that it works better for you. But yeah, we're a really fun species. So there were easier things I could have done in life. Many days I'm like, you should have picked something at least easier. And I love it every day.
That's really cool.
I love that. Ooh, there's so many things I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
You work...
How about this? I'm going to flip it on you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Why?
Therapy session.
No, just this piece. I think one thing people often ask is, how will I know if it's a good fit for me? A therapist.
Yeah.
Why did this work?
I want to ask you that question.
Okay, we'll ask each other this question. And if you go,
That's a good
Sarah, I want
question.
you to go first.
I interviewed with, I think, 6 different therapists. You were the last one. And for me, it was an instant click. I don't know. It was the resonance. It was just this feeling of, I don't know, but I feel like she's seeing things the way that I'm seeing them, but also you're seeing ahead in a way that I need. It just was this instant, you're at this faster pace or same pace, faster, but you could match my pace. And I felt like you weren't going to be easy. I think it was one of the very first things you said, that you weren't just going to tell me what I wanted to hear, you were going to tell me what I needed to hear. And there's been multiple times where I've literally during therapy, it's like we make eye contact and she's like, so you already know the answer to that. And I'm like, damn it. Like, it's exactly the hardest thing, but I do know. Yeah, I just felt like you were incredible. So, yeah.
So the how. So helpful for anybody looking, and I think even just to explain this, 40% of the traction in therapy is the fit or the click with your therapist.
Wow.
It's actually not where they went to school, how long they've practiced, the type of therapy they do. 40%. So the biggest active ingredient is, do you feel like this person gets you? And I could read that for you and me, that the click or the fit was sort of there. And in talking with that, you want that to be as high as possible. And even if at the end of it, let's say it wasn't you or me, where you're like, okay, I like the warmth, but you talk like a pirate. Let's get rid of the pirate. I could be like, here's 3 psychologists that have high warmth that don't talk like pirates. And we could have gotten onto that fit so that it was sort of better for you. For me, I'm at the point in my life and what I have left where somebody coming in who's willing to do the work. That's what I'm looking for. The fit or the click was really high sort of initially, and I think you made good on that, and we made good on that. Yeah.
That's really cool. Would you say, Sarah, we click?
Yeah. Yes, but you do the jamming test. So if I've seen like somebody and then they bring somebody in who they've seen in their jammies, you generally shouldn't take them. So it's like some therapists will do like the entire like family plus the couple plus an individual. I usually just go.
Yeah, see, with my therapist, because my wife was going to a therapist, it's the same place, but I was like, please don't go to my same therapist because I feel like that would be really weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a real thing. Yeah.
It is a real thing.
I was going to ask you, I feel like you work with a lot of interesting, high-octane, successful people. Yeah. What have you observed? Like, what makes someone... What are traits of successful people?
High frequency
are people that are like doing the things. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to your point.
Yeah.
You need enough hard, shitty stuff. If life
so
is
you've seen that
easy,
correlation?
Deeply. The highest achievers have had to overcome. It has not been
the biggest
easy.
mountains.
Deeply.
Yeah.
So if I really go the C-suites, all the people who go to school too long, the MDs, the PhDs, all the people that think too much, all the creatives who are at the highest part of, their industry, it's people who have not had it easy. So I will often tell these parents with their kids where they're making it too easy for their kids is to go, there's a sweet spot here. You want good enough parenting that, the human makes it and can sort of go on out there, but you don't want to make everything easy. You need some challenge. You need some struggle. You need some things you need your own dragons to slay and your own mountains to climb in some ways.
I keep thinking, not to bring this too much back to the course, but this is also so applicable to creativity. If you never have any challenges, if you're never going through anything or testing your limits, there's no growth. Ultimately, you're not really finding out what kind of artist you are.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah,
tragic.
Like the tragic story of just someone there, like
that just
they're
did
good
nothing.
and nothing happens.
Yeah. What would you say to anyone listening today who might be going through something really hard? Like, I feel like I've been meeting a lot of people lately who are just, it's heartbreaking. They just found out they have a terminal disease. They're going through a divorce. They lost a child. They lost a loved one. I just had 2 photographers recently I know who are coming to events of mine. One of them just found out that she won't ever be able to walk again. And that this was her last year doing photography. And I take these things for granted all the time. Or someone else I know who find out that she's going blind. That is one of my biggest fears, not being able to see the world and to show other people what I see. There's some heavy things that people are going through. From your perspective, is there anything that you'd say to somebody?
Like even on that particular one, that fear of going blind, more people fear that versus death. So if you look at this life, it will take everything from you. And sorry, I'm going to get really a little bleak for a minute. It will take everyone you've ever loved. It will take all your abilities if you live long enough. So really we kind of look at this stuff at the tail end to go, life is about learning to lose everything that sort of matters in ways if we live long enough. Now some of us will be taken off sooner than we want. But this life on this absurd planet, beautiful planet, is about losing. And so to go get good at losing. as weird as I can say that, and the 5 stages
really
of grief,
cool.
completely untrue, not based on science. Please, everybody, we will post a few sort of, not just links, there will be free stuff that's easy for people to access, that's sort of public domain for dealing with grief and living and loss that we'll probably go into a little bit more. But I would tell you, practice with these things of like cherishing that you get to see this photo. Like that, somebody can even have the memories even of this, like taking photos, of their last trip, and actually lean into those and be able to talk about those and tell other people what that was like. Don't duck pain and suffering. So the real way to experience loss is you need to basically alternate between grieving, feeling like missing it, and then doing the normal and moving on, back and forth, not one or the other. So the 5 stages doesn't apply. But I think in so many ways, this life is really sort of trying to teach us, pay attention at whatever it is that you hold dear. So I'd say for most people, when it is someone coming to you saying, this is the last, sort of like photography session that I ever had, ask her a question. Stand with her, bear witness to it. That's your job. There's nothing you can say that will make the not being able to walk better. But if you lean in and just even sort of like, tell me more, what was that like? What shot will you always remember? You're helping that person like tell the story about what meant something to them.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
It's interesting that you went so macro, and you can also think like really micro, because like macro is like, I'm like, whoa, that's some life-changing stuff, the big things. But when I think micro, there's so many little things that come up day to day. And this was just like one example. I told Kara this story, but I was talking at a workshop in Texas, and there was someone in the crowd that said like, just lately, I just feel like everything I'm doing is not working, and it really feels like life's kicked me in the balls. And she's like, what should I do? And my answer was like, when life kicks you in the balls, you got to kick it back. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then that actually really helped her. She's like, I just needed to know that actually, it feels like everyone actually, like we all end up, getting kicked in the balls at some stage, and we all have to do like, show up and get back on the horse, I think.
Yep. Get
Yeah.
up.
Get up.
So you get knocked down, lay down, roll around in it for a little bit, get back
Feel it.
up. Feel it, get
Yeah.
up. Get
And
up.
the more that you feel it too,
Yeah.
I feel like the more that you won't get back to that place.
Yep.
So like
Yep.
every time I've
That place.
yeah, every time I've
Yeah.
like really been knocked down, like actually an example of
Yeah,
this
too.
is when I went bankrupt.
Yeah.
So the night before we went bankrupt, I was actually someone gave us a van, and it was a car, and I was really thankful for that. It's like worth a couple $100. And I remember we closed up the shop. We had a cafe. It was me and my now wife. Closed it all up, and I remember that night we drove to the headland, and we just parked on the beach basically.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't sleep that night, but in the morning I was like watching the sunrise, and I had the window open, like little cracks, so there was like air coming in, and I was laying there and I was feeling it, and I was like saying to myself like, Jai, this is going to be the lowest moment of your life that you know of right now, because it is the lowest moment. Like, how does this feel? And the more that I leaned into it, the more that I was like, oh, I actually don't want to come back here. And so it was this springboard of me feeling it and then acknowledging it, and it was there. But then I was able to like spring myself out of it really fast because I wasn't trying to avoid it.
You weren't ducking. You leaned in.
Yeah.
Yeah. To go
But it's
this.
interesting that the more that you hurt sometimes it's like a lesson that you need, or feels like something that's there at the right time for the right reason, even though I couldn't see it at that time.
No. And you wouldn't have asked for it.
No, you definitely
wouldn't
don't
have
ask for
wanted
it.
this. You wouldn't have designed this, but to go, here I am, lean
Here it
in,
is.
feel, and move through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is what all this is about.
Yeah. I think thinking about the micro and the macro is really important for all of us, because so many of us think that our small problems don't really matter. And even throughout my life, like we grew up like, real low socioeconomic areas and all this kind of stuff. And people would always say to me like, oh, poor Jai, like, it must feel like, I'm sorry about your circumstances and you must have felt this a certain way. And I've always said like, my feelings don't feel any different to someone that has lots of money that's pressured into school or something. Like, I feel like we all hit a threshold of feeling, but we can all feel it regardless of what the circumstance is for the
Yeah.
person. You know?
Yeah. And I would say, even on that one, that relativism, like, oh, I don't have it as bad as so-and-so, or at least it's not as bad, that doesn't serve a function as far as helping you through it. So lay that stuff down. We're not going to do that.
It just gives you a little bit of guilt, maybe.
Yeah, it actually doesn't help, and it kind of helps you minimize it more. So we want to lean in and feel it and just go right now, like you sitting in that van, you did a good job of leaning in and moving through it. Yeah.
Acknowledging it,
Yeah, acknowledging it. I think you're thoughtful.
Yeah, I have thoughts.
Kara's got some very thought out questions here.
No, so one thing about
Yeah,
Sarah
go ahead.
actually is she's raised butterflies before with her kids and things, but I want to talk about metamorphosis for a second.
Okay.
What is it?
Oh.
What is it to you?
Yeah.
I think metamorphosis is, and again, I know it sounds really sort of big in some ways, but I go back to that piece of, are you willing to sort of burn down the good enough, the okay, to get to the essence of who you
I
are,
like that.
to get to the real you and move through it in ways where you're willing to sort of lay it down, whether, you know, life has taken it from you. Think about the person who's, you know, the ability to use your legs taken from you, or your health taken from you, versus you get to a point and you go, I'm unwilling to do this anymore. That metamorphosis, a lot of people try and duck, wiggle, squirm, not do it, until sometimes it just comes and kneels on your neck. And I think that is metamorphosis. Like, if you've ever opened up, and I have, opened up a little chrysalis, that thing goes to goo. That thing literally goes to looking like snotty mucus.
Wow. And
It's
a little,
ugly
it's
as
a little
hell.
being in there that's transforming.
That's literally transforming. So if you're on your knees crying snot out of your mouth, and we've all been at some point in a closet or on a floor or like on our knees going, please, 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 begging for the life you had, and as it's being pulled out of your hands to go, I'm going to have to move through it. That to me is metamorphosis. It's not comfy. It's not pretty. There's a whole lot of screaming, a whole lot of mucus, a whole lot of upset. Keep going.
Would you
Keep going.
say, like, it's also like the growth,
Yeah.
but also it's like grieving as well?
It is. You have to be willing to let go of something that might have been okay enough to move towards what actually could be. And I think I've had that many times in my life where it's like, okay, I could walk this as long as I could till I could go no further, and this is not okay, before you can actually swerve and let something else show up. And there's, I think the other thing, we have this idea of it's like smooth. It ain't smooth. There's a whole lot of crying, wailing, numbness. You know, I truly remember my very best friend, who's probably the very best psychologist. In the middle of a process, I actually said to her, I am dead inside, and I think I may have to go through the rest of my life this way. And she just went to me, I know that's how you feel. You're not done yet. Keep going. But that piece of just going, this is shit, keep going. This is shit, keep going. Like, I'm numb. I'm never going to be that way. For like, I truly thought this is how it would be the rest of my life. And now I can honestly tell you, there's a damn disco ball that is alive in here. The house lights are on. The wiring is upgraded. And I am more alive than I've ever been. So keep
Congratulations.
going. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's
And
pretty rad.
because you chose that, you've
Yeah.
been able to help so many people, myself included, in majorly drastic ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever said thank you, but thank you. It's like a big one.
It has been my honor.
Oh, I cry.
I probably will too, but I think where you ask vulnerability from clients, you gotta give it. So it's been my honor.
We just did some modules with you for the metamorphosis.
Okay.
Is there anything you feel like we didn't touch on that you think would be important for creatives to know? Something, or even something you want to dive in a little bit deeper to, where you're thinking, you know what, if somebody is going through this course, trying to reconnect with themselves creatively, figure themselves out, they're going through things, anything.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take this.
'Kay.
Okay. I think I want creatives, artists, and I think I will talk directly this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. To understand this, there's a lot of human beings that come into this world, and they're like an 8-pack of crayons. They have red, they have green, they have blue, they have the basic set of colors. When you see the world in visual medium, when you feel, whether you're somebody who does dance, somebody who does something more even like a medium like painting, or what you do, which is photography, you didn't come into this world with an 8-pack of crayons. You came in with a 64-pack of crayons with a built-in sharpener. You have magenta, you have cerulean, you have all the blues, all the greens, and you need to learn to use them. Learn how to do negative emotions. Learn how to not duck feelings. Learn how to not do avoidance. Learn how to go, what is this data set telling me? To become more who you're supposed to be, you've got to be able to play all the notes. Like, you don't just want to do chopsticks with like one note. Like, I just want to be happy, and people are like, I'm just going to use yellow over and over and over and over again. That would be
You actually
so
shared
annoying.
before of like a song, like just having one note, you know,
That's
instead
when
of having
people
a
are
whole
happy.
song. Yeah.
You got to use the full
You need a
range
melody.
so you can hear the melody, the range, and all the notes.
The
and I
dips,
would
the
say
high.
all of it, so that you can play the full way. Like, think about, for you, what is your favorite black grays composition? Like, just talk about that for a minute. I bet you love your darks.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Well, yeah, in a photo, definitely. If you have no darks, there's no contrast. You need to have both. Literally, it'd be no photo. It would just be blank. It'd be all white or all dark.
That would not be interesting.
It would not be interesting.
So,
Could be interesting.
learn
It
how to
could
do
be.
your feelings. Could be. Kara's like, I'm going to play with it, and let's kind of see.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. So that,
I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. How are you doing in your life right now? How's Sarah?
I know who I am. I know what matters. I know what I'm here for. And I really love this life. And it's an absurd planet we live on. And I love every bit of it. And I'm going to show up for every bit of it that I've got.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Has it taken a long time to get to that point?
I would say so. An inordinately long time. Like 50 plus. Like, let's just go into the 5th decade of life before you
Yeah.
finally go,
Oh, wait a
are
second.
you okay in your
Oh.
skin? Okay, now finally, you know, do you know who you are? Do you know who you're not? What you don't need to be, who you are. So I really feel at this point, all that, I feel really, really good. And I'm pretty sparkly.
You are very
I'm
sparkly.
pretty sparkly.
I'm seeing you.
Yeah, like,
That's really cool.
yeah.
Have you, I don't know if you can share this or not, maybe even with a veteran or somebody you worked with, have you seen any examples that you could share with us of a metamorphosis happening that you were able to firsthand witness, whether you were part of it or something you just saw? I would love to hear about that.
All the time, and there are so many days that I sort of miss the mission. There's a lot of client detail, like, you just don't go into. We get to
Understandable,
talk
yeah.
about this because of we've done some due diligence here. And I think one of the best pieces of feedback that I ever got from a veteran who leaned in all the way was he looked at me and he's just like, I would rather be shot at than sit here in your office and do this right now. And I'm just like, that touched me in the deepest way because this guy's the biggest badass. And the stuff that was sort of asked of him, like special forces level, let's just say that broadly. But to come in and lean in and look at the stuff, the moral injury, all of the stuff that he had been carrying, and then lay that down. That was the hardest thing to sort of do in some ways, and be able to bear witness to that. So even there, I just go, show up, Annie in, and watch people move through their stuff, and don't duck. Yeah, it's pretty rad. Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about what happens as you're undergoing therapy? Because I like, for me, it was interesting because I, probably from an outsider's perspective, not posting on Instagram a whole lot, not doing a ton of personal shoots the way I always used to. So it could, in a lot of ways, be viewed as lazy, which when I think of the chrysalis phase, it looks like that from the outside. But it felt like I was fatigued almost every time.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I don't know if everybody expects that coming into it.
I think you're bringing something up that I'm going to go back to the chrysalis phase.
Yeah.
Like me saying there's a bunch of wailing, screaming, snot, It's not a joke. If you do therapy well and right, the day, like after an intake, I tell people, order Grubhub. I'm going to like back down on the fee, order Grubhub. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to feel like you have the flu. It's the equivalent, like your brain consumes the most amount of your glycogen. When you're doing therapy right, it's exhausting. And so protect it. And it is gooey. And there is a whole lot of like mucus kind of going on with that, and tears. And you need space to sort of feel and move in different ways. But I think people often underestimate how hard it is. Like, I can say this as my own, like as a therapist, the day that I get the most out of people is not when they sandwich me in between their meeting, their 2 and their 3 o'clock meeting. It's on Saturday when I can make them weep.
Yeah.
It's when they can go to the mat and just feel and be and move through stuff. So therapy is hard work, and it consumes a lot of your energy. So I think where you go, I may be being lazy, you were just inside your chrysalis and stuff was going on. She's under construction, leave her alone. You need some
wow.
space.
Yeah, I think that's
really
beautiful.
Cool. I think we should wrap up with just
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
saying thank you for jumping in on our course, and also I'd love to know why that you thought that it was a good idea to talk to creatives and do something with Kara as well, collaboration. Yeah, I'd love to know.
Therapy, there is a high level of intimacy. The intimacy is real. It's sort of a strange job in many, many ways. And you're often doing it one-on-one. Yes, you can do group therapy, but as far as the level of change and people you reach, there was something about this when Kara had done the demo video, essentially, earlier in the fall, and wanted to reach more people and help them in ways that she had been moved and helped. That calls to the deepest part of me, is to go show up, make a difference for as many people. And so there's often a N of 1 when you're doing therapy really, really intensely. And I wanted to do that with the people that she really wants to help and reach. So, yeah.
We're really
Wow,
grateful to
that
have you
happened.
here. Yeah. One last question for you.
Do.
Very last one.
Okay.
And that would just be, what's the final parting piece of advice from you? This is Sarah. Get to be known for something. What would that be?
I would tell people, live life with arms wide open. You get one go round in this body, in this life, as you are now. Don't leave anything on the table. Know that you went all in for whatever that is. Whatever that is. And I don't think it has to be crazy stuff, but in your own way, that you're not at the end of this going, I wish I would have. I wish I could have. I wish I had. That, don't do. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to end with that. Okay, thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And don't forget
Okay,
to subscribe to the YouTube channel and listen on the podcast and do all the things like beep,
Ding.